All right, hey everyone. So today we're going to be taking a deep dive into something pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
And that is the world of sleep and memory.
Okay.
But more specifically, we're going to be looking at how those slow waves
Right.
that happen during deep sleep are really key to how memories are formed and how memories stick around.
Absolutely.
So the source material that we're using today is a super interesting
Right.
new study that just came out of Charité Universitätsmedizin Berlin.
Wow.
It was just published in Nature Communications.
Really cool.
And, you know, they may have actually figured out why these sleep waves are so important
Yeah.
and what that means for us, like if we could potentially boost our memory.
Absolutely. It's a huge breakthrough.
Yeah.
You see, we've known for years that, like, boosting slow wave sleep, it leads to improved memory.
Right.
But the actual mechanism, how it works,
Yeah.
has been a bit of a mystery until now.
Okay, so before we get into like the really specific details of the research, can you maybe just remind us how memory formation happens during sleep?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I feel like this is something I vaguely remember from like Psych 101,
Yeah.
but a little refresher would be great.
Of course.
Yeah.
So think of it like this. During the day, your brain, it's constantly taking in new information, right?
Yeah.
It's forming these short-term memories.
Mm-hmm.
And it does that in a region called the hippocampus.
Okay.
It's like a temporary storage space, you know,
Right.
a mental sticky note, if you will.
Yeah.
But for those memories to actually last,
Mm-hmm.
to become long-lasting, to become, you know, something you remember,
Right.
they need to be moved. They need to be transferred over to the neocortex.
Okay.
That's the outer layer of your brain.
Yeah.
That's what's responsible for your higher level processing, your long-term storage.
Gotcha. So it's like the hippocampus is kind of like a temporary holding cell.
Exactly.
And then the neocortex is like the permanent vault.
That's a great way to put it.
But how does this transfer actually happen?
That is the question, isn't it? And that's where sleep comes in.
Okay.
While you're sleeping, while you're in deep sleep, your brain is basically replaying the events of the day. It's transferring those memories from the hippocampus to the neocortex.
Okay.
And what's amazing is what this new research shows us is that the timing of these slow waves, those synchronized electrical oscillations in your cortex, is actually crucial for this transfer process.
Oh, wow. So it's not just that we need slow wave sleep,
Right.
but the actual timing of these waves really matters.
It's the timing that's the key.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, and the researchers, they discovered that synapses, you know, those connections between neurons in the neocortex, they're most receptive to change right after the voltage rises in the slow wave cycle.
So it's like these tiny little windows of opportunity
Where the brain's
primed for solidifying those memories.
That's exactly it.
Wow, this is starting to get a little bit complex.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible stuff.
I mean, how did they even figure this out?
Right.
We're talking about these microscopic processes happening in the brain.
Well, you're right. This is cutting edge neuroscience. It's amazing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the techniques they use, they're so sophisticated.
Yeah.
They were actually working with actual intact human brain tissue that was obtained from neurosurgeries.
Wow.
Yeah, which is a very, very rare and valuable resource for this kind of research.
So they're working with like actual pieces of the human brain.
They are, yeah.
Wow, that's wild.
It is, and they use these tiny, tiny glass micropipettes.
Okay.
They were controlled with like nanometer precision to actually simulate slow waves in the brain tissue.
Okay.
And then to measure the responses of individual neurons, they use something called a multi-patch technique.
Okay, so I'm going to need a little help visualizing that multi-patch technique. What is that?
Well, so imagine, right? You've got these incredibly fine glass tubes called micropipettes, and they're used to connect to individual neurons in the brain tissue.
Okay.
And these pipettes, they're so delicate, they're actually controlled by robotic arms to make sure that they have, you know, the best precision.
Right.
And through these tubes, they can both stimulate the neurons to mimic that slow wave activity, but they can also record the electrical signals the neurons are producing in response to that stimulation.
So they're like stimulating the neuron to do a thing.
Right.
And then also recording what's happening.
Exactly. And by patching onto multiple neurons at the same time, they get this this incredible real-time view of how the neurons are actually talking to each other.
Oh my gosh, so they're like eavesdropping on these little conversations that are happening?
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
During the slow waves? Wow.
It's like listening in on the brain's electrical chatter.
That's some serious sci-fi stuff.
It really is.
Yeah.
And what they found through this like eavesdropping is that the timing of these slow waves, it directly affects the strength of those connections, those synapses in the neocortex.
So it's not just about increasing like slow wave sleep in general.
Right.
It's about harnessing the power of those specific moments.
Yeah, the timing is key.
When the synapses are receptive.
Exactly.
Okay, so what does this all mean for like, us regular people?
Right. Right.
Like, people who aren't neuroscientists.
Of course.
Can we actually use this knowledge to try to improve our memories?
That's the exciting part.
Yeah.
This discovery about the timing, it could revolutionize the way we approach memory enhancement. Researchers all over the world, they're exploring ways to actually influence slow wave activity during sleep.
Wow.
Using things like transcranial electrical stimulation and even just like carefully designed auditory cues, like sounds.
So instead of just trying to get more sleep, we could potentially use these techniques to fine-tune our slow wave activity and make our memories stronger.
That's the idea.
This is blowing my mind.
It's pretty amazing stuff.
Yeah.
So by targeting those precise moments when synapses are most receptive, we could potentially make memory transfer way more efficient.
Wow.
Imagine, right? You could boost your memory power just by optimizing your sleep.
Okay, so let's get into specifics.
Okay.
What kind of technology you're talking about here?
Sure.
Are there like devices that people can use right now to enhance their slow wave sleep?
Well, it's still, early days.
Right.
But there are some really promising avenues being explored right now.
Okay.
One of the most exciting is transcranial electrical stimulation.
Okay.
Or TES.
ETS. Okay, yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Remind me how that works again.
So it basically involves applying these very weak electrical currents to very specific areas of the scalp.
Okay.
So think of it like giving your brain a little gentle nudge in the right direction.
Okay.
And what's fascinating is that researchers have actually found that TES can actually influence slow wave activity during sleep.
So you're saying we can actually manipulate,
in a way, yes,
these brain waves with a little bit of targeted electricity.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
But how do we know we're stimulating the right areas?
Right.
At the right time?
Right. And
that seems incredibly difficult to pinpoint.
It is. And that's where this new research about the synaptic receptivity comes in. Remember we talked about those tiny little windows of opportunity where the brain is primed to solidify those memories. Yeah. Well, now that we know when those windows occur, we can actually potentially time the electrical stimulation to coincide with those windows.
Oh, so it's not just zapping the brain with electricity randomly.
Right. No.
It's about like very precise timing.
Precise timing, precise location.
And location.
Yeah. And that's what makes this so revolutionary.
Yeah.
It could allow us to move from just this general approach to sleep enhancement to a much more targeted strategy for really boosting those specific types of memory consolidation.
I'm starting to get the picture.
Good.
So TES is one promising technology.
Yeah.
Are there others that are being explored as well?
There are. Yeah. Another fascinating area is auditory stimulation.
Okay.
It might sound surprising.
Yeah.
But certain types of sounds, they can actually influence brainwave activity.
Wait, so you're telling me that just listening to certain sounds...
It's possible.
...could potentially boost my memory?
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
How does that even work?
So our brains they're incredibly sensitive to patterns, including, auditory patterns. And researchers have found that playing very specific types of sounds, particularly ones that have rhythmic patterns, can actually entrain brainwaves.
Okay.
So what that means is the brain's electrical activity, it actually starts to synchronize with the rhythm of the sound.
So it's almost like you're gently guiding the brain.
That's a good way to think about it, yeah.
Into this rhythm of the sound.
Kind of like a little brainwave lullaby.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So what kind of sounds are we talking about here?
Sure.
Is this Mozart?
So
Is this white noise?
It's not quite as simple as just listening to any old music.
Okay.
Researchers are experimenting with with a lot of different types of auditory stimulation, including things like pink noise and very carefully crafted rhythmic beats.
So it's more about the specific frequencies and the patterns than like a particular genre.
The pattern is key. Yeah, and they're still figuring out exactly which sounds work best,
right,
and how to time them best with the different stages of sleep.
This all sounds very like early stages.
It is.
Like, are there any consumer products available right now that use these techniques?
Not quite yet, but there are a lot of companies and research groups that are actively developing these closed-loop auditory stimulation systems.
Okay, what does that mean?
So imagine like wearing a headband that's monitoring your brainwaves as you sleep. And then it plays these precisely timed sounds.
Oh, wow.
To try and enhance that slow wave activity.
So it's like a personalized sleep soundtrack.
Yeah.
Designed to boost your memory.
That's the
That sounds pretty futuristic.
It is pretty futuristic.
But with all this talk about manipulating brainwaves and enhancing memory, I have to ask, are there any ethical considerations that we should be thinking about?
That's a great question and a really important one. Yeah. I mean, as with any powerful technology, there's always the potential for misuse, right?
Right.
So, for example, if these memory-enhancing tools become widely available, could it create an unfair advantage for people who have access to them? Would it, make those inequalities in education or the workplace even worse?
Yeah.
These are all questions we need to be thinking about.
Yeah. It's like we're on the verge of this whole new era.
It really is.
Of like cognitive enhancement.
Yeah.
And it's crucial that we think about the potential consequences.
Absolutely.
Both good and bad.
Both the good and the bad. Yeah. We need to have those conversations,
Yeah.
About the ethics.
Open and honest conversation.
Open and honest, exactly. And we need to make sure these technologies are developed responsibly and used responsibly.
Okay, so this has been such a fascinating discussion.
Look, my pleasure.
I'm already thinking about the implications of this research.
Yeah.
For my own sleep and memory.
Of course.
Before we wrap things up.
Sure.
I want to circle back to something you said earlier. About the brain's remarkable plasticity.
Oh, yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Absolutely. One of the most exciting things about all this research is it really underscores the brain's incredible capacity for change and adaptation. For centuries, people thought the adult brain was fixed, that it couldn't change.
Right.
We know now that's not true.
Okay, so our brains are constantly evolving.
They are.
And adapting.
They are.
Even in adulthood.
Even in adulthood, yeah.
Wow.
Every new experience you have, every skill you learn, every memory you form, all of these things, they physically change your brain.
Oh, wow.
It changes the structure.
Wow.
It changes the function.
Wow.
And sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep plays a crucial role in all of this.
So in a way, we're constantly reshaping our brains.
Mm-hmm. We are,
throughout our lives.
Yeah.
And sleep is like the sculptor's hands,
That's a great analogy.
Confining shaping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And what's so exciting about this research is it gives us this little glimpse into how sleep sculpts our memories.
Okay.
The mechanisms behind it.
Yeah.
And by understanding those mechanisms, we might be able to develop, even better tools for enhancing cognitive function and promoting brain health.
Wow.
Throughout our lives.
This is all so fascinating.
It is.
But I have to ask, are there any downsides or risks to these memory boosting technologies?
Yeah, that's a really important question, and one that researchers are actively looking into right now. I mean, as with any new technology, especially one that's interacting with something as complex as the brain.
Yeah,
we need to proceed carefully.
So, what are some of the specific concerns?
Sure.
What kind of risks are we talking about here?
Well, so for example, with TES, there's still a lot we just don't know about the long-term effects of applying electrical currents to the brain. It's crucial to do that research, to make sure it's safe, to make sure it's effective.
Right. We don't want to be frying our brains
exactly
in the pursuit of better memory.
Yeah, no brain frying allowed.
What about auditory stimulation?
Okay.
Are there potential downsides there?
So with auditory stimulation, one of the key things we have to consider is how different sounds might affect sleep quality overall.
Okay.
Right? We want to enhance slow wave activity, but we don't want to mess up other important stages of sleep. We don't want to cause any unintended side effects.
So it's not just about like blasting white noise all night long.
No.
There's real science.
There's a science to it.
To figuring this stuff out.
Absolutely. It's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
And really understanding how those different sounds and those stimulation parameters, how they interact with someone's individual brain.
Okay. This is all so fascinating.
It is cool stuff.
It really feels like we're on the cusp of like this whole new era of understanding
it does feel
how sleep and memory work together.
Yeah, like we're unlocking a secret code to the brain.
To like boost our cognitive abilities.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yeah.
But as we've discussed, it's also important to approach all of this with a healthy dose of caution.
Absolutely.
And ethical consideration.
Couldn't agree more.
I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah.
To our listeners, we hope this deep dive into the world of slow wave sleep and memory has sparked your curiosity.
Yeah.
And given you some food for thought.
I hope so.
Imagine a future where we can optimize our sleep for learning.
Right.
Enhance our memories.
Absolutely.
And maybe even reshape our brains for the better.
Yeah, it's a future full of possibility.
It is.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's a little scary, but mostly exciting.
Yeah.
And we can't wait to see what unfolds.
Me too.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Thanks for having me.